Greetings, Jamie here from Impeccable Indigos, and this is Dahlia. And I want to take a few moments to talk about what does it take to feed a hatchling indigo, hatchling Drymarchons in general, and why that is a big part of why indigos and Drymarchons are not really beginner snakes. They're not the most advanced snakes. There are definitely many more difficult species to keep. But starting juveniles out, starting hatchlings out on food is one of the challenges of keeping Drymarchon. So this is Dahlia, who was hatched August 1st of 2022. It's now beginning of May 2023. And you saw in a previous indigo, you saw me unpack her the day she arrived from the breeder, Vic Herrick, one of the most long-standing and respected breeders of eastern indigos in the country. And there are reasons why he is highly regarded and why you want to consider the way he treats his hatchlings as something you should expect from an indigo breeder. By the way, she is in blue, her first shed with me, and she is very chill, though she has a great personality. So when Vic Herrick sent this snake to me, he sent her along with a feeding record, and that is something you should expect from a responsible indigo breeder. You don't really want to buy an indigo from a retail pet shop or from someone where the snake has been through multiple hands unless you really know something about the history. And in buying hatchlings, you want to really be careful because some people will maybe feed their snake a handful of times, assume the work is done, ship it out, and then it doesn't want to feed and people run into trouble and snakes die because of that. And feeding Drymarchon is tricky because the fact that in the wild they eat so many different things, which works for them as a wild species, it actually works against them in captivity because you never know what they're going to come out of the egg wanting. One wants fish, one wants chicks or birds, one wants reptiles and a lot of, or amphibians, frogs, toads. And in the wild, snakes are a big part of indigo diets, but as hatchlings, probably they may grab even earthworms or grubs, you never know. But I wouldn't be surprised if you very often find them catching young toads and frogs and tadpoles and salamanders and things like that, things they can easily overpower that are not easy for us to offer to them. So when Vic Herrick shipped this snake to me, he shipped her along with this record card of her feeding and sheds. That's another sign of a responsible breeder. And there's a couple of dozen feedings here in the time he's had this snake. And this snake was about 8 months old when he shipped it to me. And for many of his customers, he still doesn't even want to ship them that young until he's absolutely certain. Some of these snakes, some percentage, right out of the egg are going to take pink mice and never look back, never have a problem. And those are the ones that are easy to sell first, that you can safely sell. But then there's always a certain percentage that just want something else, so they're going to be inconsistent and they're going to be tricky. So if I'm just looking at this record that Vic sent me, the first feed after the first shed was a fuzzy mouse, it looks like, so that would have been a live, small, fuzzy, scented with quail. And another is scented with toads because Vic has access to that where he lives. He catches them. Another was sent, then a pink was scented with chick scent. Then he fed a chick leg, right, from a frozen thawed chick, and just fed the leg. And so these are all experiments to get the snake to eat, see what it likes, see what it will eat most consistently. And Vic told me of a difficulty with a client who didn't want to try some of these things because very often one of the things that will really get them started is when you scent with the brains of either a rodent or a bird. So chick brains or mouse brains are sometimes very inviting. There's something about that that really stimulates an indigo. And he's had clients who Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to feed that. That makes me uncomfortable. Well, what's more important, whether you're squeamish about something or whether your snake survives? I was looking at a Facebook group. It wasn't about indigos, but and someone was really having trouble with a corn snake that had a young corn, a little corn that had gone like more than a month without eating. I suggested that they try a live, just leaving a live pinky or a live fuzzy in a small container with the animal, and that comment was stricken from the group. It was against the rules because you're not allowed to promote live feeding in any way. Well, I'm opposed to live feeding. I would never feed live in any case with bigger animals. I've been feeding frozen thawed since the 1970s when it was first recommended by Carl Kaufeld in his famous books. But something like a pinky or a fuzzy, if that's what it takes to start an animal, what's more important? And if you leave that young animal another week or two without eating, it weakens it further and it reduces the likelihood it will survive at all. So your priority has to be the animal, and you have to be willing to do whatever's necessary to get it to eat. So when she came to me, she was still eating scented fuzzies, frozen thawed fuzzies, scented with either fish or chick. And so what I did was I froze some of those little fuzzies in small bags with a piece of fish, with a piece of silver side, with the head of a frozen chick. So it would take on some of that scent. I defrosted and refroze and let him take on some of that scent, and experimented. She wanted to feed off tongs. That's a really good way to get them started because that movement helps, but each one is different. And I have my young female Noir. She needed to be fed off tongs when she was young, but if you came at her with it, she would immediately retreat and then she wouldn't eat. You had to draw the prey away from her. And this is why experience counts. This is why this is not a first time snake for people to have. It's better to have some other experience first so you can begin to learn from experience how to read a snake, how to read its body language, what it's doing, what it's indicating. And so Noir always wanted the prey to go against her, away from her. Dahlia wants the prey on tongs, just moving a little bit, and then she grabs it. And over just a few feedings, over a few weeks, I moved her from scented to unscented. I gave her a scented first and then an unscented second, because once their feeding behavior is triggered, then they'll go on. It's easier for them to take the next item. And then after a few days, I experimented eventually after several meals like that when I knew she was eating here after being moved and being in slightly different conditions. Then I tried her on unscented and she ate unscented. Also, it's important that I duplicated the conditions she came from. I didn't move her into the conditions that I keep my snakes in yet. I haven't changed the substrate. I haven't added UVB yet because she didn't come from that. I'm going to start to do all those things now. But first, I wanted to keep her simple and simplified and similar to what she came from. And all those things have worked out now. And then I moved her up to hoppers, to frozen thawed hoppers unscented. And she's already, just within a few weeks, eating really, really solidly and well. And when she comes out of the shed, I'll start to move her into a slightly larger tub and into the substrate I use here and start to expose her to UVB and get her more settled in my husbandry system here. So feeding hatchlings is one of the real challenges of keeping Drymarchon in general, indigos in particular. I'm very happy to say that this little girl is eating really well. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, post your comments and questions, and stay tuned at Impeccable Indigo.